Hi guys, welcome back. I was out of town yesterday as I finally had to go and collect electronics I left behind in George before the car broke down. We left early in the morning and only got back fairly late. Today I'm not going to dissect Megan's podcast as per usual, as I just don't feel up to it. And her guest, Jamila Jamal, is as deplorable as Megan herself, in my opinion. I break out in hives every time either of them open their mouths. However, I shall give you a brief rundown and my opinion. Megan's guests were Jamila Jamal, Sharei Agashlu, and Ilana Glazer. Now, I'm sorry, I had to Google Sheree and Ilana. I have not heard of them before in my life. Sheree, I found out, is an Iranian American actress who studied at Brunel University in London. She is 70 years old and has quite an impressive resume, or so it looked. At first I could not understand why I did not know who she was, but I guess she played in the kind of movies I do not usually watch, and although she also had roles in series such as House MD and Bones, it was only for an episode or two. Ilana Glazer is a comedian, actress, etc. And I'm sorry, she may be great for all I know, but I have also never heard of her. I guess it is because I'm not American. Anyway, on the podcast, Jamila compliments Megan for being such a great support for her when she got negative press. How Megan reached out to her privately, blah, blah, blah. What a pity that Jamila herself is not the nicest person on earth and is known to be one of the people who bullied Caroline Flack to the point where she finally committed suicide. Yes, Caroline had other issues, but Jamila did not reach out and supported Carolyn, privately or otherwise. No, instead, she heaped hate on her. Ask Piers Morgan. He indeed has the evidence. Jamila is also the type of crude person, narcissist, who tells us that if we don't like her, we can just F off. Yes, she actually says so in so many words. So why doesn't she just F off out of our faces? I mean, she's one, we are a crowd. Jamila was also the one who a few days ago hit out at, and I quote, rich white celebrities who voted for Rick Caruso for mayor of Los Angeles. So I guess she does not like someone being rich or white. But again, what do we have here? A white British woman having a lot to say about American politics. Yes, my dear friends, Jamila was born in Hampstead, London, to an Indian father and Pakistani British mother, neither nationalities which has ever been classified as anything but white in Britain. She only relocated to America in 2016. So once again, we have yet another Brit giving her 5 cents worth on American politics. I do not know whether she is an American citizen yet or not, or whether she has dual citizenship. But my policy has always been, if you don't like it, leave. Jamila's main issues with Caruso are that he wants to clean the streets of Los Angeles and move the homeless to shelters, and that he is pro-life. Talk about pro-life. Jamila, who had an abortion herself, had this to say about it.
I'm impressed that you actually went public with the fact that you had an abortion. We're talking about that today. I mean, what's your response to this latest, atrocity, in my opinion, from the Republican Party to destroy women's rights?
I'm horrified by it. I'm deeply saddened. It's such a personal thing, and I'm with Stacey all the way. That this is Stacey, who I love. Oh my God! But I'm with Stacey that this is a medical decision, and statistics show people do not make this flippantly, and people do not use abortion as a form of birth control. When I had my abortion, it's because I'd used a condom and it broke, and then I took the morning after pill within 6 hours, which is way before the end of when you're supposed to take it, and because I was over 175 pounds, it didn't work on me, and the pharmacist didn't tell me that. That's not general knowledge, that if you're over a certain weight, it's less effective.
I didn't know
That's
that
not
either.
my fault. I shouldn't have to give up the rest of my life or risk my life or maybe die because contraceptive made by men failed. Are you kidding me? It's ridiculous. And so it's not a decision that people make flippantly, and our whole society is going to collapse if this happens. Right? If we force millions more people into a world where we have no baby formula, not enough access to healthcare, not enough access to education, not enough access to shelter, the cost of living crisis, the housing crisis, we are already way up over our heads. So if we are forcing millions of people into this world, we are, as a society, whether you are right, whether you are left, whether you are pro-life or not, it doesn't matter. You will all suffer the consequences of a crowded, broken political, healthcare and education system.
Well, as you heard, Jamila used a condom and then the morning after pill did not work on her. So according to her, she was forced to have the procedure because she was not going to give up her life just because preventative measures discovered by men failed her. Oh, shame. So her life is worth so much more than that of a baby who may have had the potential to become an astronaut, a doctor, a scientist, or even a president. But yes, if someone is not ready or equipped to have a child, I fully agree that they shouldn't. Absolutely 100%. But firstly, if you don't want babies or a baby, then don't be promiscuous or don't sleep with someone you are not prepared to have a child with. And if that is not feasible or doable, then make 100% sure you are protected. Condoms are not the only way to do so. There are condoms, the diaphragm, cervical caps, contraceptive sponges, birth control pills, the vaginal ring, a skin patch, or the injection, the copper IUD, hormonal IUD, a contraceptive implant, spermicide, or vaginal gel, and then sterilization if you don't want children at all. In today's world, and in particular with someone like Jamila, who isn't dirt poor and had been educated, there is no excuse for an unwanted pregnancy. Absolutely none. And then I guess she also have not heard of the alternative should a pregnancy occur. Things like adoption, for instance, either through the child welfare system or, if you're rich or famous, a private adoption. Then, as if all of this wasn't enough, despite dating James Blake since 2015, Jamila came out and announced that she was queer after receiving backlash for her role in Legendary. Yes, folks, she said she identifies as queer. Strange how she is besties with Meghan Markle, who in her lifetime identified as white, black, Italian, French, Spanish, and lately as a princess. I guess one can say two peas in a pod. Jamila also supports climate change activists like Jane Fonda and Greta Thunberg, and called Chanel designer Karl Lagerfeld a ruthless, fat-phobic misogynist after his death. I guess he wouldn't send her freebies, but who knows? However, there is one statement of Jamila which I had always found rather funny, and in particular now. In 2018, in an interview, she said, and I quote, "I think it's a disgusting crime to Photoshop your images and put them out there in the world without announcing that that is what you have done. It's a lie. You are lying to your fans and your followers and people who look up to you. You are an arsehole. I really believe that you're an arsehole." Anyway, so shall we ask Jamila whether she considers her friend Megan for having most of her photographs, those of herself and her children, photoshopped, and sometimes even having her husband's photos photoshopped. I mean, who can be married to a guy with a bald head? Not Megan. I think that would be a cool and good question to ask Jamila, don't you? Again, Megan is driving me nuts with her breathless narrative. She is so out of touch, so 25 to 40 years out of date, late with all these stereotypes. Women have been activists for so long that most of us have forgotten about the time when women were barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. I feel like I'm living in an alternate universe when I listen to Megan's podcast. I'm not a teenager and old enough to be Megan's mother had I started a little earlier in life. And God knows, I have never known any woman who was subservient and not prepared to stand up for things we believe in. And nor have I come across anyone who had been jailed for being a woman and having an opinion. Having said that, I am aware there are countries where this does happen. For instance, the current protests in Iran, where women can still be detained for not wearing a hijab. In Western cultures and many others, those times of oppression is long gone. The first woman to be elected president of a country was a lady whose name I cannot pronounce, but who became president of her country, Iceland, back in 1980. A whole 42 years ago. And since then, we had many more all over the world. Women in most countries these days protest as loudly as their male counterparts and are not treated any differently. Had Meghan and her guests spoken out for women in Iran, for instance, and made that the entire topic of this podcast, I would have agreed and supported them. But no, they opted to continue this victimhood narrative where everything is the fault of those misogynistic white men. Yet, where most of them are actually married or dating those exact same rich white men. Why? Where would Meghan have been today had she not married that white British royal from a rich family? Why is she insisting on using that British title her very white, rich, ruthless father-in-law allows her to keep? And what about her previous guests, like Serena Williams, also married to a rich white guy? I am so sick of the woman Meghan Markle, who continues to push this victimhood narrative, who continues to use every cause in the book as an excuse for her bullshit, her bad behavior, and her sick lies. You cannot cover a lie with a fake cause. I personally cannot stand Meghan Markle anymore. To make matters worse, I actually listened to the podcast this week, and I can tell you that it did my head in. I don't know whose voice was worse, Meghan's or Jamila's. Jamila has a tendency to start talking very loudly and very fast when she gets excited. Oh my goodness, there cannot be a bigger victim than Jamila. Honestly, I think Meghan will have to take the next month to dream up and come up with stories to top Jamila's. After an hour and 2 minutes, I had a headache and was feeling rather sick and felt like kicking a door in. What I found rather funny though is that once again, Meghan calls Jamila her friend. Yet Jamila made it clear that they have only once or twice met in the flesh. I'm sorry to say, but most people do not consider people they have met once or twice as friends. Yes, Megan's conversation with Sheree did include the subject of the protests in Iran, but unfortunately, Megan went and spoiled the effect of this conversation with her closing monologue. Now I'm going to play you the closing monologue, but then after, I'm also going to read it to you because the sound may not be too great.
To be able to have conversations like these felt really affirming, empowering even, because it reminded me that as women, we aren't alone, even when we have the audacity to stand for something. We stand together. And I thought a lot about words that become unnecessarily charged as it pertains to women, like feminism, for example, often treated as taboo as the F word. Or the word woke. I know, I'm saying woke. I fully realize I am spoon-feeding the clickbait, but here's why. Because woke, by definition, means alert to injustice in society, especially racism. Now, what's loaded or wrong with that? And when you layer a woman into that seemingly anodyne definition, it becomes for many almost disgusting, outrageous, they would say. But why? What is so scary about a woman having an opinion as strongly as a man does? And why do we sometimes cower to that? Turtle, as I often say, go back into the safety of our own shell. As Shorey shared her closing thoughts in Farsi, it reminded me of a message that was shared with me just a few days before my wedding by a very, very influential and inspiring woman who, for her own privacy, I won't share who it was with you, but she said to me, I know that your life is changing, but please don't give up your activism. Don't give up, because it means so much to women and girls. And I kept doing the work for women and girls because it matters, yes, but also because she encouraged me to do so. And the collective voice of all of us telling each other that matters is perhaps the point. There's safety in numbers, but there's also strength in numbers. In the week since we've been putting this episode together, a lot has changed. Women's rights here in the US still remain in limbo, and in just the last week in Iran, their parliament voted to impose the death penalty on all protesters in custody as a, quote, hard lesson for the rebels. That's with nearly 15,000 people having been arrested thus far for protesting. How many of those being young girls or young women? We don't know. But their message was clear. For standing their ground, they should no longer be allowed to stand at all, or to live. Our collective voice is our lifeline. Women who are scared into silence remain silent. But if they know they aren't alone, if they know we are echoing their voice for the side of right, then it's no longer noise. Then, what we're making together is music.
She says, to be able to have conversations like these is really affirming, empowering even, because they remind me that as women, we aren't alone. Well, men, just in case you wondered, you are not alone either. You still have the rest of us, mothers, sisters, friends, girlfriends, and wives to support you too. Okay? Anyway, she goes on. Even when we have the audacity to stand for something, we stand together. I thought a lot about words which had become unnecessarily charged as it pertains to women, like feminism, for example, often treated as taboo, as the F word or the word woke. I know I'm saying woke. I fully realize I'm spoon feeding the clickbait, but here is why. Because woke, by definition, means alert injustice in society, especially racism. Now, what is loaded or wrong with that? And if you layer a woman into that seemingly anodyne definition, it becomes for many almost disgusting, outrageous, they would say. But why? What is so scary as a woman having an opinion as strongly as a man does? Nothing, Megan. And then she carries on. And why do we sometimes cower to that? No, we don't. Turtle, as I often say, go back in the safety of our own shell. As Sheree shared her message in Farsi, it reminded me of a message before my wedding by a very, very influential and inspiring woman who, for her own privacy, I won't share with you who it was, but she said to me, I know that your life is changing, but please do not give up your activism. Do not give up because it means so much to women and girls. And I kept doing the work for women and girls, yes, but also because she encouraged me to do so. And the collective voice of all of us telling each other that matters is perhaps the point. There's safety in numbers, but there's also strength in numbers. In the week since we have been putting this episode together, a lot has changed. Women's rights here in the United States remained in limbo. And in just the last week in Iran, their parliament voted to impose the death penalty on all protesters in custody as quote, a hard lesson for the rebels. That's with nearly 15,000 people having been arrested thus far for protesting. How many of those being young girls or young women, we don't know, but their message was clear. For standing their ground, they should no longer be able to stand at all or to live. Our collective voice is our lifeline. Women who are scared into silence remain silent. But if they know they are not alone, if they know we are echoing their voice for the side of right, then it is no longer noise. It never was, Megan, but never mind. Then what we are making together is music. And then she plays music. Now, my rebuttal to Megan's monologue is this. No, feminism is not a taboo subject. In most countries I have visited, as well as the one I live in, we happily talk about it and the many shapes and forms feminism comes in. No, it is not equal to the F word. Feminism is a culture, a way of life, and not a swear word. And woke? Yes, Megan uses the adjective definition straight from the Oxford Dictionary, but does not consult any other dictionary or reads the full definition, which actually reads is defined as aware of and actively attentive to important facts and issues, racial and social injustice, and to be aware of oppression and injustice. You see, there are many forms of oppression and injustice, and I guess I'm also woke then for thinking and feeling that we are being oppressed by being forced to accept Meghan Markle as a British Duchess. And I think it is a huge injustice done to the people of Britain and the Commonwealth. So I hereby declare myself as woke as Meghan Markle. And then she launches into the story of the very, very influential woman who begged her to continue her activism. What activism? What did Meghan Markle do before she married has-been? And which very, very influential woman? Why would it be a secret? How would Meghan be invading her privacy by mentioning who it was? She won't be giving away her blood group and home address and the names of her children, etc. Of course, this is yet another fabrication of Meghan's, yet another lie, a dramatization to elevate her own importance. And what does she mean by women's rights still being in limbo in the United States? Isn't the Vice President of America actually a woman? Aren't women in professional jobs all over America? What is she talking about? I'm guessing she's talking about those abortion laws. Well, why should the life of any woman or man precede that of a child? If human males and females, mothers and fathers, or then womb and sperm donors cannot protect the lives of other living, breathing humans, then I guess it is time governments do so. Personally, I cannot and will not ever be in favor of termination after 12 weeks, no matter what the circumstances. And the only circumstances I can, in good conscience, accept are those in which the mother and child's health and safety are at risk, where the pregnancy is as a result of rape or incest, or where the serious birth defects are discovered long before birth. I think those conditions are in fact just and or can be classified medical conditions. But to say you are just not ready or don't feel like it or because you've just started your career or whatever are, in my opinion, not good enough to take the life of another with the potential of being a productive human being in the future. Such a person should have investigated the many preventative measures well in advance. We are human, and it is our brains, our ability to reason and to make decisions, to have empathy, which distinguishes us from animals. But lately, listening to the likes of Megan, I feel as if it is the goal of people like Megan and her ilk to turn us into barbarians again, mindless fools who will bow before the evil such as Megan in order to receive our daily bread. I cannot decide for any of you, but I won't bow down to this kind of belief system. I refuse to. I would rather cultivate my own food or go hungry before I prescribe to her evil and disgusting dogma. Now, if you are not upset with me by now and haven't unsubscribed in your droves, then I hope to see you back here for the next video, in which I'll bring you more things Harry and Meghan, as there is a lot which had come out over the last few days, and I had my back end kicked on other platforms again for my views on royal and other matters. So we'll talk about all of that as well in the next few videos. So until we meet again on the next one, please take good care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Bye.